With a smug grin and a mocking gaze, she points at him, pleading and begging him to go on and throw one of his usual fits. And honestly, she can't stand the thought that he's her childhood friend. And it was in that moment that something deep within him shifted, that something in the depths of his soul snapped. Takayashiki Rua is not your average girl. She's one of the hottest idols at the moment, while also being the granddaughter of Takayashiki Taizo, the chairman of the Teiken Group, Japan's ruling corporate giant, making her wealth and influence far beyond any normal person. In other words, she was a real-life princess in action. On the other hand, our main protagonist Suzuki Kazuma is just a run-of-the-mill guy. He's gloomy and plain with no friends to his name, but most importantly, bro is maidenless. He's who we'd call a loner, sitting at the very bottom of the social food chain. His only defining trait and achievement in life is being able to call himself the childhood friend of Rua. Believe it or not, he spent his whole life as Rua's shadow. Like he was Igris or something. But that's never been his desire. He doesn't want to be special like Rua. All he ever wanted was something simple, a real connection, friends, a girlfriend and a normal life. But he didn't just come to this conclusion suddenly, as he actually tried to express those feelings to her. But it took a turn for the worse. With venom dripping from her voice, she asked if he was stupid, that he should know his place like the worthless, gloomy loser that he is, as his only worth in life is being her childhood friend. Nothing more and nothing less. That role alone used up all his life points, and he should get it through that tough skull of his, as her words ring through his ear that he should know his place. The words that she repeated to him all these years, they weighed on him like a burdening curse, but even then, he couldn't help but long for a normal life. It was then, in the spring of his first year in high school, that he sat by his desk at home, shortly after receiving a text message from Rua herself, requesting that he meets her at the station the next day at 3 p.m. since Aya and some other friends had planned to go to karaoke, asking if he wanted to go. He figured that this Aya person must have been Hiragi Ayaka, the flashy girl from school who oddly enough he never spoke to. Confused, he wondered why him of all persons, and as if he were answering his thoughts, mentioned something he had said in relations to wanting friends, but most importantly, a girlfriend, further encouraging him that the best way to do that would be to join an elite group like theirs, encouraging him to take the first step. As his eyes glistened at the opportunity, he thought that this would finally be his chance to change, and he desperately wanted to. He dressed up the best he could and even went to the barber to get that sweet fade. It was finally the moment of truth, and right as he pulled the handle of the door, he thought to himself that to become a new him, in order to finally change. The room burst into laughter as they taunted him for actually showing up. How gross it was. They even mocked my boy's fade, mentioning how he smells like he just got out of the hair salon. Plus they're clowning his fresh new jacket. All while Rua laughed the loudest, mockingly asking them to stop as he really did try his best. Yet Aya, her friend, sat quietly unamused. Kazuma stands in silence, not a single word left his mouth, and as he drowns the sounds of all the laughter in the background, he realized that it was all just a setup. Rua stands to her feet and asked him what was wrong, as he just seemed to be standing there awkwardly. She cheers him on, begging him to cry in front of everyone, as she had bet 10,000 yen that he would have. Ignoring her plea, he whispered under his breath, requesting that she answers just one question. If he had done something wrong, desperately desiring to know what exactly he had done to deserve this. And with that devilish smile of hers, she answered that it was obvious, simply because he was her slave, urging him to go on, struggle, to put on a good show for her. And then it happened. She finally admitted the truth, that this whole time she couldn't stand the thought of him being her childhood friend. Kazuma's eyes widened as it felt like something just broke. As if chains were being snapped, he could finally hear the sounds of a bond being shattered. It was the last straw for him, and with those dead and soulless eyes, he looked right through her, mentioning that he felt the same, that they should cut ties, and she couldn't believe what she just heard. Infuriated, she asked him what exactly he thought he was saying. A loser such as himself shouldn't even be talking back to her. But Kazuma was right, as she was the one complaining after all. She continued her onslaught once more that he shouldn't mess with her, as unlike him, she has every right to hate him. But Kazuma's done. He clenches his fist and with a sudden explosion of rage, he slams it through the table. And almost as if it were nothing to him, he turns around facing the door in front of him, finally mentioning that it was settled, and closes the door behind him. Standing in shock, Rua's entourage talk about how lame Kazuma was, and how she shouldn't worry about him. Meanwhile, her friend Aya made an astute observation, asking if bro really broke the table. And as they gathered, they were all met with denial and disbelief that a human could possibly do such a thing. All while Rua stands afar off, shook with rage, unable to grasp how it was a piece of her confidence could be shattered by someone like him. And while standing in place, she screams that she'll never forgive him for breaking off their friendship. All while Kazuma, on the other hand, thinks how refreshing that whole experience had been for him, as the world itself seems to be glowing. He wondered why he had always allowed her to control him this whole time, as he'd much rather face high school alone than sell his soul to a beast wearing human clothing. But deciding to move forward and no longer living in her shadow, Kazuma finally felt free. That same night, we get our first glimpse of the man pulling the strings behind the mighty Taikai group, Takayashiki Taizo, and with a stern demeanor he stares at the pages before him. But that all changes when Rua calls out to him from afar, and his whole mood lightens up. She goes on to mention how Kazuma has been mean to her today, as he threatened to break off their friendship. But her statement catches the attention of the beauty standing idly in the room. Rua's cousin Takayashiki Kikura turns in disbelief, asking if what she had said was true. Rua confirms her suspicion by reiterating that she couldn't believe it herself, as she never once thought Kazuma would oppose her until now. Still not convinced, however, her cousin Kikura mentions that maybe she had been the one to say something nasty, with Rua casually admitting to calling him her slave, and yeah, maybe she also said being his childhood friend was the worst. But they had already figured that that was what had happened, as it's only natural for him to be upset after being told that. But Rua doubles down, insisting she was only teasing him. Jealousy bubbles to the surface as she confesses that it's infuriating to her to see Kazuma trying to make friends and looking for a girlfriend, as the whole thought to her is ridiculous. But Kikura mentions that wanting more friends is actually pretty normal, but denying it all, Rua screams at the top of her lungs that it's not. After all, Kazuma always had her. The world's cutest Rua is always by his side, yet just the thought of him wanting to get close to another girl is unbelievable. And because of that, she believes it's only natural that she'd want to tease him about it. As in the whole world, she's the only one who understands him the most. Because get this, she loves him. And that's all Gramps needed to hear to switch sides, as he claims that it's indeed Kazuma's fault. But Kikura seemed to have been the only one convinced Rua was wrong and nudged her to apologize. But she stubbornly rebuts that since her cousin was once Kazuma's mentor, she could figure something out and make things right by having him apologize and confess that he loves her. And while he's at it, to add a kiss as well. Kikura couldn't believe how down bad she was and directed her focus towards her uncle, asking if he had intended for Kazuma to marry Rua, with him confirming that he did, since that's exactly the reason he had her teach him martial arts, as well as the arts of leadership. Plus, Rua had liked him, and a talent such as himself was one of a kind. Gazing towards her fan, Kikura agreed, claiming that she's never seen anyone like him before, as ever since he was in elementary school, his grades have always been straight 3s graded out of 5, purposely scoring a little over average in order to fit in, as all of this was done as part of his training to become Rua's shadow. But if he were to ever stop and choose to aim higher, then not just the whole school or country would be shaken, but rather the whole world. And if our boy wasn't suffering from success already, well, turns out he was always popular with the girls, as she's not even able to count just how many had been transferred out because they liked him. And as a result of that, he never realized just how popular he was. Hearing this, Rua stands proud as she claims that that's her Kazuma after all, while Chairman Takayashiki mentions that that's why he's a worthy candidate to take over his company. But Kikara saw much further, since now that he's cut ties with Rua, he no longer needs to hold himself back, and she couldn't help but wait for the moment when everything would spiral out of control. And it started the very next day. The halls of the Teikai Academy buzzed with tension, and right in the center of the corridor sat a single desk and chair that belonged to Kazuma. The message was loud and clear. He went against Rua, and this was his punishment. Of course, the ultra-rich Harris would stoop this low just to prove how much of a cruel, spoiled human being she really was. Still, he didn't let it shake him. Instead, he calmly weighed his options. Option 1 was to drag the desk back to class and endure the ridicule. Or option 2, complain to the staff. But it wouldn't have been worth it since the school literally belongs to her grandfather, chairman of the Teikai group. You see, this isn't just any academy. This is Teikai Academy, a school that cultivates S-class talent, where elite students from across the nations are recruited under a scholarship program to become the best in sports, arts, and academics, you name it. If you excel, you don't pay a single yen. But make no mistake, because this place runs on a hierarchy, a real-life castle system, complete with upper and lower ranks. And sitting at the very top of the throne, Rua, the self-proclaimed princess herself. So yeah, option 2 was out the window. Instead, Kazuma does something no one expected. He grabs his pen and quickly scribbles a quick message on the paper taped on the chair. He stated that he'll be studying on his own, and since it was a direct message from Princess Rua herself, then they should please count him as present. Surprised by his 200 IQ play, the other students stood in shock as Kazuma decides to head to another location, but also thought about how troublesome it would be if others found out about it. And upon his arrival, he reveals that it's an underground library that only he and a few others know about, as most students and some teachers are unaware that it even exists. But since he's a regular, the senior of the library committee lets him in sometimes. As he walks down the stairs towards the door, he thought about how he just killed time until classes were finished, thinking how he'd always wanted to live a normal life. But now that he's gone against Rua, he doesn't think he'll be able to make many friends or having a girlfriend for that matter. And as he grips the door handle, he wishes to now live quietly on his own, and opening the door before him, all he saw were yams. And it's in that moment that Kazuma had no idea about the story that was about to be unfolded right before him, as his goal of seeking an ordinary life was now filled with extraordinary girls, and his days were now far from peaceful. With a million eyes watching, a single girl stirred up chaos. The evil and conniving Rua began her live stream on a channel with over 1,091,000 subscribers. Damn. And today she's here to vent about someone who seriously ticked her off recently, since just the other day she went out for karaoke with a few girls from her class. Apparently, someone in Rua's karaoke group decided to kill the vibe mid-session and just left. Halfway through, I know, tragic. Rua leans in close to address her legions of subscribers, whom she affectionately calls her loyal subjects, telling them to listen up, since if the party's poppin', they should never be the odd one out to wreck it. Oh, and lastly, she has some huge news, announcing a brand new gig, and she's teaming up with a new voice actress named Minato Amane They're not only working at the same agency, they also happen to attend the same school. Their debut CD is dropping soon, and the first live event is scheduled for next Sunday at the Shine Mall. And with that, Rua signs off as thousands flood the comments with admiration and support. But back to the present, Kazuma, now awkwardly standing in front of a door he shouldn't have opened, lowers his gaze and apologizes for intruding earlier. The young lady inside, clearly startled moments ago, bows her head slightly, introducing herself as Amane Minato while also apologizing for raising her voice so much. But our boy, feeling guilty for barging in, admits that he should have knocked, asking if she too had heard about the secret spot from the head of the library committee. When she had answered yes, he figured he wasn't the only one and decided to wait outside, giving Amane the opportunity to change. A few minutes later, Amane opens the door and gently invites him back in, still apologizing for the wait. But Kazuma can't help but ask the question that's burning on his mind. Why was she changing in there, and why in her gym clothes no less? Amane explains that she was just looking for a quiet spot to rehearse her singing and dancing. And as it turns out, she's a voice actress preparing for a big upcoming event. That's when the realization hits him that she's from the entertainment world, just like Rua, another elite handpicked by the academy. He glances around and notices a oversized mirror Amane brought with her, clear evidence of her dedication. But it also made him curious because why wasn't she in class? Amane's eyes drop since this morning when she arrived at school, she found her desk and chair in the hallway, accompanied by a sign that read, "No seat for you." Kazuma freezes. He's heard this before. The setup, the humiliation, and suddenly her teary eyes from earlier makes perfect sense. Just then his phone buzzed with a new message. No, multiple messages. All from Rua. She's demanding to know where he is. Worse yet, she's asking if he saw her newest video. She might just reveal his name in her next live stream and let her fans hunt him down. Unless, of course, he brings his pathetic little desk back into class and beg. And just from the look in his eyes, you could just tell he was disgusted. Kazuma turned his attention back to Amane, but still puzzled. Since if she was really one of Teikai's special scholarship students, then why was she going through all this effort? But even though Amane is a voice actress, she's far from popular. And according to her, she knows exactly why. It's her face and her voice. But you already know my boy couldn't let her talk like that. He had to dig deep in his wrist bag. Mentioning that he isn't able to see her face properly because of all her bangs, but he thinks her voice is pretty cute. And just look at her. Look at her face, bro. He got her out here blushing. But to her, it's absolutely not true. Since there are a ton of other people out there with better voices, and compared to Rua Takayashiki, she's nothing. But even so, someone like her ended up forming a unit with Rua, which might just explain the harassment she's been getting lately. During Rua's livestream yesterday, Amane got hit with a flood of comments, stuff like, if Rua teams up with someone like that, then her reputation's doomed. Harsh words from Rua's fans, but hey, pigs do attract pigs. But it begs the question, why is she even deciding to team up with that pig anyway? And she couldn't believe what she just heard, warning him that he can't just be calling her that. Since if someone heard him bad-mouthing Rua at school, it would be bad news. But since it's just the two of them, bro's allowing his intrusive thoughts to run wild. Amane confesses that it wasn't her decision to make in the first place, but rather the agency. Since she's seen as plain and gloomy, they thought she'd make the perfect supporting role behind Rua's spotlight. Cruel, yeah, but that's just Teikai music for you. They do anything to push Rua, and my god, bro, how many company do these people own? Kazuma doesn't doubt that the whole desk and chair situation was Rua's idea, and even though it was the agency's plan to pair the two, Rua probably can't stand the thought of being paired with someone beneath her. And before he could even complete his thought, she stopped him. She's okay with being her background support since it's a rare chance she's been given. So at the very least, she doesn't want to drag anyone down, but instead give it everything she has. And her words absolutely moved my boy to his core. He asked if that was her reason for coming to the library to practice, and when she had given a resounding yes, he couldn't help but smile to himself, admiring how cool she seemed to him. And with that, he mentions how he'd like to keep her company. Though, to be completely honest, all he really can do is give feedback from the perspective of a complete amateur, and asked if it were okay with her. Before he could even finish, Amane's eyes lit up. She gently took his hand and smiled, as from now on, she's counting on him. And for a moment, just seeing her close up like this, Kazuma realized something. This girl is way cuter than that pig Rua could ever hope to be. Time flew by, and before they knew it, it was already lunchtime. And Amane had been practicing non-stop since morning. Kazuma started to worry she might be dehydrated, when suddenly from down the hallway an obnoxious voice yells his name, and right behind him was none other than the witch herself, Rua, as she asked where the hell has he been this whole time. And you could just tell, look at him, bro doesn't want to be here right now. Her verbal barrage kept going as she pressed Kazuma, asking why he was ignoring her. She even noticed that he blocked her on Messenger, but then delusionally thought to herself that maybe he isn't able to look directly at her because of how beautiful she was. But bro walked right past them like my dad walking out my life. And that's when dude grabbed his shoulder, asking what the hell was up with his silent treatment. And all it took was one look for Kazuma to break down this man's whole character profile like he was Batman or something. Because of that, we now know this dude's name is Asano, and he's the baseball club's promising scholarship student. As well as how bro must be some bum to be hanging around Rua instead of practicing. Hell, he should take a page out Amane's book. But looking at him too long had bro's blood boiling, especially since he wasn't saying anything. And so he pulled back his fist, ready to swing, and god damn! I didn't know bro had ultra instinct. He had Asano wondering if he was punching air, but Kazuma was finna lay it on him thick. He was staring death itself in the eyes, but he was too baffled because when did he get behind him? And now he's looking like a clown because he missed. They wondering if he weak or something. And hell, Kazuma wanted to have some fun too, asking bro if he's out of shape or something. And just as he was about to try again, Rua stopped him right in his tracks, since the only one allowed to seriously mess with Kazuma is her. And they only get a chance to if she gives them permission. Otherwise, no one should be laying a finger on him, and he should know his place. And just like that, the whole corridor went silent. Kazuma finally looked at her for the first time in their entire exchange. And you could just tell she's been waiting on this all day. But instead of reacting how she hoped, he called her out, asking if she really thought she did something cool just now, but instead decided to set things straight himself by declaring that absolutely no one was allowed to mess with him. Since he doesn't care who they are, he just wants them to leave him alone. Rua fell to her knees, eyes shimmering, heart pounding. She was gone. That line, that confidence, it hit her like a cupid with a bazooka. To her, Kazuma had never looked cooler. A whole week has passed and best girl Amane seems to be hard at work. But mid-practice, she spun too fast and nearly collapsed. That's when Kazuma swooped in, catching her just before she hit the floor. She apologizes since she keeps falling each time, but he reassures her not to worry about it, since he wouldn't want her getting hurt before the real thing. Starstruck, Amane couldn't help but think how amazing Kazuma was. He could be all the way across the room, but as soon as she trips, he's right there to catch her, but bro's just trying to play it off like he's not real life Bruce Wayne. But to her, it's not true, because ever since that day, he's been watching over her and encouraging her, not realizing how much it had helped her. And once again, she just wanted to thank him. And you could just tell from his expression, no one's ever said something like that to him before. But yet again, he tries to deny it. And almost as if nothing had happened, he turned his focus to her performance. Since wouldn't it be best to just walk back to center stage instead of doing a spin? As she always seems to lose her balance when she does. But to her, it just wouldn't look the best that way. So instead, Kazuma recommends jumping back in one move. Since if she used the strength in her knees, then she'll of course be able to casually flip in the freaking air. Like, is bro using backflips to get the huzz now? Like, what are you doing talking about C like this, bro? You better sit down. And of course something like this is impossible for her, but most importantly, what the heck was that? And she's right, normal people can't do that. Also, bro's grades must be off the charts, but nah. Because ever since he was in elementary school, he's only scored above average. But changing the topic once more, Kazuma thought about how her posture seemed a bit off. But no matter how hard she tries, she's never been able to fix her slouch. And as usual, bro's putting that brain of his to good use, mentioning that maybe she should take advantage of that slouch of hers, mimicking something cute like a purring cat. And she just went along with it, giving him all the right poses and angles, and he can hardly handle all that cuteness. And it seems that somehow, it's finally clicking for her. Kazuma recommends having her designer make cat ears and tail to go along with her outfit, and she was fully on board until she wasn't, as she wouldn't be able to use it for her performance with Rua, since it just wouldn't match well. Along with the fact that she's supposed to be a background support. Kazuma took a moment before asking if that was really okay with her. But since her singing and dancing isn't necessarily her specialty, she'd actually prefer he watch her practice acting instead. After all, she is a voice actor. She desires to perform as an anime character, and that's why she's giving it her all now, hoping that it'll lead to other opportunities one day. And Kazuma couldn't help but think how positive she was, especially when she speaks about voice acting. She seems so full of life. He confesses how he felt envious, as he doesn't seem to have any dreams or goals to aspire towards. When she asked if there wasn't anything he wanted to become, the only thing that came to his mind was that he wanted to be ordinary. A life that he could be proud to proclaim that this was who he was. And even then she believed in him. Since if it was him, she had no doubt that he could attain the very thing he wanted. And that's all he needed to hear as he smiles in appreciation for her kind words. Feeling a lot closer to him, Amane took the opportunity to ask a more personal question. Since the other day, well, she heard that he had gotten into a fight with Rua and thought that maybe it was because of her. He reassures her that that wasn't the case, but being persistent, she mentions how they were childhood friends and how she must be putting him in a tough spot, but he doesn't consider her a childhood friend anymore, and that's all she needed to hear. She steels herself to make a confession. She stutters at first but proceeds to ask if maybe he'd like to, and the witch herself appeared on the scene, asking what the hell were the two of them doing in such a cramped space, as she gets ready to unleash her attack. Yo, it's your boy Noodles, and hopefully the audio on this video is better. And going forward, if there are any improvements I could make to these videos, then please do let me know. Also, I wanted to apologize because this video took a while to come out, but I promise bro, going forward I'll try my best to keep up with the consistency. But with that being said, your boy Noodles out.